This is the story of a podcast. A podcast called Fools with Tools. Not an Earth podcast, never broadcast on Earth, and until the terrible catastrophe occurred, never seen or even heard by any Earthman. Nevertheless, a wholly remarkable podcast. Not only is it a wholly remarkable show, it is also a highly successful one. More popular than the Kling Spore Audio Compendium, better selling than 50 more hosts on a podcast, and more controversial than How Big Is Your Expensive Tool Collection? Where the Godfather Went Wrong. And in many of the more relaxed civilizations on the outer eastern rim of the galaxy, Fools with Tools has already supplanted the great Encyclopedia of Hinges as the standard repository for all knowledge and wisdom, for though it has many omissions and contains much that is apocryphal, or at least wildly inaccurate, it scores over older, more pedestrian work in two important respects. First, it is slightly cheaper. And secondly, it has the words, "For fuck's sake," inscribed in large friendly letters on its thumbnail. But the story of this terrible, stupid episode, the story of its extraordinary consequences, and the story of how these consequences are inextricably intertwined with this remarkable book begins very simply. It begins with a house.
Hello and welcome. I'm Steve.
And I'm in the spare room.
And I'm Mr. Tumnus.
And this is Fools with Tools, a podcast for the egregious editor. Oh, is that what? Yeah, that was it, wasn't it? Yeah.
Egregious, Mickey.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, how is everyone? Al, how are you? What have you been up to?
I'm all right.
Good.
It's been a very long week at work. We had a huge workshop with a big client, so it was kind of all building up to that. But Thursday night, my friend said, I'm doing an exhibition on Saturday. Could you build me a lighting rig for a human-sized Amazon Alexa? I was like, oh, okay. So she'd actually had this interactive piece at the exhibition that I did at work, and it was kind of like you go in the room and she's inside this Alexa. And
is it pronounced potato or potato?
And it went down really well at the exhibition that we had in the summer. So she's done like a version 2.0 and rebuilt this whole Alexa and actually like done it really nicely and got like really nice fabric. And she's changed all the questions and it's like really aggressive now and really like intimidating. And basically she's turned it around so you become the Alexa. So you sit on this chair and she just asks you shit and gets like more and more impatient with you. It's really funny. In fact, a lot of people kind of got like quite upset because she was getting like really kind of like asking for bank details and shit. But it's all done with like a computerized voice. So she's got a soundboard, but she's edited in a way that like she knows the questions that are coming and stuff, and it's really quite advanced. But yeah, last minute she was just like, you know what would really make this awesome if you had like an actual like lighting rig like an Alexa on the top. So that was the panic build on like Friday night, just busting that out, and then Saturday went down, helped install it, and it went down really well. It was just like a local sort of arts festival. It was on Saturday. It was a really nice little day.
Awesome.
Nice little afternoon.
Cool. Nice little afternoon. And then I've had one of my mates staying at my house. He's just having a bit of trouble at home, so my house has become kind of like a a social retreat for like welfare and well-being. So I've been kind of looking after my mate for a couple of weeks, all week actually. So this is my first beer of the week. So I'm dying to.
Yeah,
Lovely.
There he is. Oh, Asahi.
Nice. Brett, what about you?
I have been prepping and doing the class things. We have Steve Pellegrino here for knife making again. And it turns out, as much as I thought I was prepared, more than prepared this time, I was absolutely not. And we have, I think, 12 students, and the last knife making class was 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And not only are there just more people, everybody is in full overachiever mode, including Matthew Berry from Matthew Berry Customs. I think everybody's made 6 knives. And so that was all the grinding and profiling. And then so Steve and I spent 4 hours just heat treating and stuff yesterday. And then it's like everybody got their knives back and they're like, right, so there's not much left to do, right? And we go, okay, well, handle making will take you a while. And we have to do the finish, grinding and all this, whatever. So I think everybody got a sense of it a couple of hours ago because this is technically the last day.
Yeah.
I think it hit everybody like a ton of bricks. And I started hearing everybody just kind of go, right, so I think I'm just going to try and finish the one or maybe 2 of them if I can get to it because it's hard to knock out a knife in an afternoon, let alone 6 or in a weekend. It's going really well, though. I got to do a little forging demo with Steve last night because there were some people keen on learning how blades are forged and whatnot. And even though I have only made, I think, 2 knives, we got through it. We made it work. Other than that, I have been working on a project. I was kind of keeping it a bit secretive because I was still waiting to hear back some information on said piece. And though it is a bit of another restoration, it's quite special. I found a post vise from a flea market, the big flea market that we go to on Sundays. I found it a couple of weeks ago and messaged Chris Cash, Mr. Post Vice himself. And over the days of deconstructing it and figuring out how the hell it was made, it is this tiny little beautiful thing. And it's probably 200 years old.
Yeah, that is a lot of rock.
Yeah, and so I had to forge a new collar and spring and all the little guts for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then do a lot of tweaking on some of the bits that weren't fitting together after such age. But I am delighted with how it turned out. I'm very happy.
Good.
And I was going to try and get the video up by this weekend, but editing is tough.
Yes, it is. And that segues beautifully into
what have you been up to?
Into what Steve's been up
to. What have I been up to? I have very much enjoyed having a week of
week off.
Yeah, week of doing nothing as always.
He's got so much time off now that he doesn't have a job.
Oh, he's such a prick. What have I done? I actually did take Tuesday completely off, and that was nice. But we've just been full production mode all week, and yesterday was a class. But the reason I took Tuesday off is because we had a very fun, busy weekend, which Al completely forgot to mention.
No, I left you to recap it because I'm not greedy.
So because it's been 2 weeks since we last recorded, the reason we wanted to have next week off is because
I'm just not sorry. I just realised I kind of look like Ellis from Die Hard.
Yeah,
Hans, Booby. The beard's at that density level.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Sorry.
Anyway, yes. So we had a festival on last week, which is why we didn't record. Because not only was it me there, but Al joined us. Cara was there, and obviously Jazz was there as well. It was fun. It was quite a relaxed festival for us. Much more so than some of the other ones we've had this summer, but still kind of busy days in the workshop. Didn't really get to see too much of the actual festival, just because I was alone in the workshop for a lot of the time because Joe couldn't come because he was teaching in the woods, and Al decided to go to A&E on the Friday. Just because he had a little bit of metal in his eye. But yeah, and then on the Saturday, we did a Forge and Feast with Al doing the cooking and Al doing the forging. And that wasn't at all confusing for me. But
especially when I started cooking on the forge.
Yeah. So I'm trying to explain to people what's happening. And I've got Al, and yeah. But yeah, it was really good fun. Lots of people involved. The food was top notch, and it was really nice to be able to kind of give people the chance to use the stuff that we make before they buy it. And I think that's something that's going to be happening quite a lot more next year. Alex Pole, is absolutely in love with Hack Shack Al, and especially the amazing spatchcock chicken that he did. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he wants to get Al back to do all of the festivals and all of the cooking, and basically be our waiter, which I think is quite
waiter.
Good.
Oh, he'll be our waiter.
No,
I'll be your waiter.
Yeah.
No, I'll be a butler.
That's it. Yeah, butler. Sorry, not waiter. That was the one. But yeah, lots of fun. Al got to meet Jim Parking, and then didn't realise that he'd met Jim Parking until 20 minutes later. But yeah, it was a really good, fun festival, with lots of wonderful people and things happening. And that doesn't segue beautifully into our subject. But if I was clever, what I could do is edit it so that I went after Al. But unfortunately, I'm not that good, which is why I need a lesson in editing. So, Brett.
Right.
What's that all about?
Episode 101. Back to editing basics. Yes. Welcome. So I'm going to be jumping back and forth between a chat with the boys and the editing software that I use, which is Adobe Premiere. I'm going to specifically try and keep things pretty general because everybody's got a different editing software, and it's a lot like right angle grinders. Like there's a lot of different brands. They all kind of do the same thing. It's whatever you got. There you go. It's whatever you have either the funds for or can justify. Just so that everybody's aware, I do use Premiere because I also use things like Photoshop and Illustrator and Audition, and I get access to all of those things by having like the Adobe Cloud stuffs. So I've been using it for years. Whatever, it's the tool I'm comfortable with. Anyway, here's the interface of Premiere. I'm going to drop everything in and then have a couple of talks about pre-production that I do to make my life a bit easier once it comes to the edit, because we all hate knowing that we finished the project, but you haven't really finished the project if you want to put it on the tubes or the socials. So I'll drop everything into a timeline just to get it up there. And this is literally what I do every time. I just take all of my footage and dump it. So it's in there, and I can get a sense of, I look at this and go, oh, great, I have 2 hours and 17 minutes of footage. I hate my life. I can't wait to edit all of this stuff. I am going to, for shits and giggles, I will show the viewers a little test that I learned a few years ago from a production manager, which was how to edit in camera or how to shoot tight so you can edit light. That was always the motto: shoot tight, edit light.
Rhymes.
So I already checked my folder that has all of my video footage in it, and I have 133 clips. I'm going to say on average, they're anywhere between 3 and 5 seconds. So I'll split that and say 4. Let me do the math on camera. The math's on camera again. So 133 clips times 4 seconds a piece, let's call it 532, and then divide by 60 to figure out what could I roughly, based on my experience in editing, what should I kind of end up with the footage that I've got if I use every clip, because I've deleted stuff. If it wasn't a good shot, or if I knew that I didn't achieve the goal as I was filming it, I'll just go delete that clip. I don't need to even be bothered with it in the edit. So right now the math comes out to 8.86. So almost 9 minutes. I'm going to use the example of the broom video that I put up, and I have already finished the edit, obviously, and put it up a week or two ago. And if I go to the end of the timeline to see how long it was, it's 8 minutes and 50 seconds. So almost on the nose with my estimation. Just means I I probably shot everything that I needed and didn't have a lot of extra. It's just a good gauge. It's way over the top thinking that no one else really needs to do. but if it helps you,
what I like, Brett, is that there could be a middle ground with that. Like you're saying, shoot tight in the camera, be really like economic because it's going to save you time in the long run. But I do like that bit in between where you might have shot more than you need, but you can just delete it. You don't need to. You don't need to import it. You don't need to slow down the process. You don't need to add it in your timeline. You can just you can almost like edit in between the camera and when you actually come to edit it.
Yeah, and I realized it was a bit specific. The example that I was giving was a bit specific to me, but what this is going to tell you is obviously when you pump everything in the timeline, you're not going to go, oh, I know that I'm going to have an 8-minute video. Like that's not necessarily what you're going for. What it does is help you get a gauge for if you're somebody that likes, pretty quick paced stuff, or you want a long format. If you come in and put in all of your footage and you have 10 minutes of footage, but you thought you shot 6 hours of footage, then something went wrong. You need to be paying attention a little bit more in camera, what you're shooting, or did you forget to hit the record button a few times? This is really good for me because I like to keep my videos moving pretty quickly because I like keeping everybody's attention. I move my camera a lot when I'm filming to get different angles and stuff. So if I have, say, the Forge video had 7.5 hours of footage, I way overshot that. That I knew going in that I was too much footage.
Yeah, just to quickly go back to what I was saying, though, I think that's something that we kind of rushed over a little bit, but I think it's worth mentioning again. Like, if you're anything like me and you have a computer that isn't exactly the quickest thing in the world, and when you import everything into your timeline and it then takes 20 minutes to play a 30-second clip, it is massively worth just, even if it's just quickly looking at the thumbnails of everything that you've shot and going, actually, you know what? I reshot that 20 minutes later and I don't need that one because I know that's crap because the continuity doesn't work or whatever. Or even if you have to actually play those clips before you import them, just to, like Al said, you get rid of the shit before you import it. Even just doing that can make a massive difference.
Yeah, and so much of editing that I've learned over the years is just optimizing not only the hardware that you're using, but just your time in general. Yeah. If I were to tell you to go find 6 of this one size of screw, but it was in a bag of 7,000 other screws, it's obviously going to take you shit ton of time. Just parse everything down as best you can.
Yeah.
Be able to work with less footage, or like give yourself less work to do in the aftermath of actually building the project. Because there's a couple of different approaches here too in the pre-production thing where somebody like Jimmy will film while we're working on a project and he will go home at the end of the night and edit up to what we got shot that day. So he actually edits as he goes along with the project. I don't know anybody else that does that. To me, that's insane because I don't know how the story builds or I can't understand the pacing, but Jimmy has a very specific style that works for that kind of thing. So, good on him for doing it, but I have to be able to drop everything in so I can get a sense of what I'm working with and the pacing of things.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of applies to a lot of people. Like a lot of people will find that it's possible to trim stuff down. So you know that if you're building a project over 3 weeks and every other day you're doing a little bit of filming to it, if you can spend half an hour to just go through those shots and just trim down, even if it's just cutting out the bit where you turn the camera on, walk in front of it, do your thing, walk around, and even if you just trim that down, like that can make a massive difference.
I am still waiting for one of these editing programs. I don't care if it's Windows Movie Maker or iMovie, it doesn't matter. Like this has to be the big boy. This has to be any program that edits footage where there's just a function or a button that says, would you like me to trim the first and last 2 seconds off of every clip in this timeline? And you just go, yes, please. Because you're going to get rid of it anyway.
I'm going to build on that. What if it can sense that there's no movement?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And just cut out the bit up until something actually starts happening.
Yeah.
Which it probably would be able to.
not bad, but hero shot. A lot of people do their beauty shots at the end, and there's very little movement sometimes. I wonder how selective you could make it be.
But that's the thing is
we'll work on it. Dear Adobe.
Al, do your Raspberry Pi magic and figure out something.
I'm sure it's probably fucking quite easy actually. That's how the effect works. Where I did the Matrix thing, where I took the pill and I turned like glass. Basically, it you go out of shot and it come back in shot, and it's the bit that's changed. So it knows when there's different pixels.
Yeah, very nice. I mean, to be fair, writing a program that cuts the first and last few seconds out of a clip would be like a easy project for anyone that does any coding.
Yeah, that's nice little script. Get on it. There we go.
All right, so I know very little about technical things like that. I just know how to click buttons and make edits happen.
But I think the principle of being more ruthless, trimming stuff down, because so many times I've done my edit, got to it, and it's like, fuck, it's 20 minutes long. Yeah, and you go back and you just spend all that time getting all the timings right and the shots nice and the composition nice, and then you just go back and you go, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Yeah. You know, cut that clip in half. I don't need to show that. I've already showed the sanding. Fuck it off. If you can be it's gonna be like you can be ruthless beforehand. It sounds weird, but
I think almost every edit I do at least 3 passes through of like the first one is just a really rough cut. The second one is like, does this make sense? And the third one is like trimming out seconds here and there just to get it down.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to chuck in one other little tip, just because it's in my head, and I know that there's going to be people that are going to suffer from this as well. If you're anything like me and you have a really old camera that the audio's shit on it, and you have to record the audio completely separately, don't do what I tried doing for the first Forge video and try and add that sound in as you're doing the edit. Just if you've got a long clip of people talking and a long audio file, just mash those two together first, then edit, then export that and then import that again, rather than trying to do like each little clip, because fuck, that was painful. And like I spent an entire evening doing that and then just went, I'm an idiot.
No, this could be a 6-hour long talk about audio and video, everything. We'll try and keep it. Yes, that's a great note. The silly thing to talk about what you guys mentioned with the not being precious, that might be one of the things that I have on total lock after doing this for like 15 years. I only edit one time. Like everything goes, I tend to shoot in chronological order if I can, because it helps me with the way that I want to try and build the story. It's not always going to work out that way for any of us. Even if you're not necessarily one to try and develop a story or do an intro and outro, some things can be done out of sync because you're waiting for something to glue up, so you work on another piece. I tend to work chronologically because it helps me. Again, it saves me time. Taking the extra time to film that way saves me time in the edit. That's the only reason I really do it. I have been told so many times by production managers that were above me to not be precious to my work, or, hey, I shot 6 hours of footage at this event. What can I put a video together on? And they're like, you have 3 minutes on today's TV show, so you have to edit it in the next 2 hours and it has to be 3 minutes long. That'll teach you to be not precious about anything. You just take an axe and rip it all in half. I have to reiterate this again. This isn't how to edit. This is how I edit. I hope it helps. I think I know a little bit of like tips and tricks that I picked up over the way, but Al, I know you do an amazing job with your file systeming to keep things in order within your user interface. I am set on default, and I've been like that forever. That's how it works. I make folders. That's the only difference, is that I have folders on the side.
I think it's because a lot of my projects are not all shot in one go, and I do some scenes. Like I've got scenes from things I shot years ago that I'm still making into projects. So I have to fucking properly order it and file it and name it, because otherwise I'll come back and I have no idea where that clip is. You know, and I have to keep everything. It also means I've got to like save everything. You know, in a perfect world, you'd like shoot, edit, and then get rid. Like you don't need to save the files. Like you're not going to go back and do a fucking George Lucas redo. Like, like
you're going to take all of your right angle grinders and turn them into walkie talkies. One of these days.
So yeah, unfortunately, it's my I'm my own worst enemy, so I need to be organized, which is not one of my virtuous strong suits. But yeah, in this instance, I am quite organized.
Right on. I edit to music. I put like there's always music in my videos because it helps me edit and keep pace with things, and it also helps me try and develop the mood of whatever I'm trying to, whatever story I'm trying to tell, or the mood of the piece that I'm working on. You know, it's really typical to see metal movers or forging videos where it's just rock music blaring through your ears and it's all fast paced and stuff. I specifically don't like. I won't say I don't like that. I don't prefer that. And I tend to steer away from it and go for something a little bit more mellow because I think the action of swinging a hammer is nice, but ramping the energy up that much gives me anxiety while I'm editing, especially when you're like repeating shots to see if the timing is right and you're just listening to the like 16 times in a row. It scares the crap out of me. So with you guys, I know that we've all talked about Steve's ambiance in his videos, and it is definitely a thing and a style. It's opinion, but I really like that you don't use music, and that you let the atmosphere speak for itself. Al, you kind of pick and choose as things feel the right way. But do you guys start with audio being a prevalent choice, or do you just kind of get to parsing things down?
For me, like there's a few recently where I've started, like some that I've not put out yet, where the audio, like I'm actually talking to camera, and so that then becomes a much bigger concern. Generally with mine, I tend to I tend to cut down for the correct visuals, but because, like you say, you've got those hammer strikes and things like that, I'm quite cautious, or I'm quite finicky about making sure that I don't cut into it whilst it's at the begin or like halfway through a set of strikes. So it's not like all of a sudden there's one strike and then an off strike and then three strikes. Like I try and keep that, make it so that the rhythm makes sense. And the same, like the few times that I have used music, I'll put the music in at the end, but I'll then pay a little bit of attention to when it's cutting in and when it's cutting out. And like then like do another pass through with the edit. And that's when I'm cutting out like a second here or making this one actually a little bit longer, just to make sure that it kind of matches the music in some way.
Gotcha.
But yeah, for me, like a lot of it is I really like the natural sounds, and I like using those kind of audio cues to set up where things are going. So I've started getting to the point where, you know, I'll do a fade in to a shot, but I'll have the audio coming in first, or even if it's just a quick cut, you know, I'm already talking before I cut over to the visual, or I'm already putting the hammer sounds in or whatever.
I think that overlap is once you realize you can do that. Yeah, audio is a really nice way to link scene to scene. So
yeah,
you're not just cutting and then a different bit of music, or cutting and then because there's obviously something subconscious that's going where you kind of hear that first. Yeah, and obviously that's the part of the brain that's before visual, so you're actually hearing it and going, oh yeah, fuck, this is next.
Yeah, really it just makes it less jarring, I think.
Yeah. I think I actually did that by accident the first time, and just left it in, and I was like, oh, that really fucking nicely. And I didn't know. I did do my basic fucking research, but also it's obviously a really nice way to link scenes together.
Yeah,
right. And I like how it's a default setting. I'll bring up my user interface right now and just show what we're talking about to any of the visual listeners. But between these two clips, the audio is just ambient noise, exterior noise, but then I start slamming on this block. What I appreciate about what Steve said is most blacksmiths have a rhythm that they strike at. So if I were to cut right now when it's at the top of the screen, so breaking in the middle of that, you'd have a 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you cut in the middle of that, you'd end up obviously with that 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's really jarring. It doesn't seem like it's going to do that. But I like that you're aware of that, Steve, because it definitely comes across in the videos.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that again, that kind of comes just from like the first few videos I did were like, if I look back at them now, they were awful, and the way that things were cut together, and it was going back and watching that made me realize, like, actually I need to make sure that this isn't just suddenly cutting randomly to the next scene. There's no flow to it. So I need to make sure that I've got I've got something that helps pass it through, and whether that is using a transition effect or something like that, or whether it's just queuing up and it
George Lucas screen wipe.
Exactly.
Venetian blinds, classic.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the Jaws. It's got to be the Jaws.
Star wipe every time. But yeah, that's the thing. Is it's only got to be a couple of seconds of that little overlap makes a huge difference, and it's the same thing if you do a quick cut and you don't do that audio, then have it like coming in the middle of like it, for example, even if you're just using Angle Grinder and you're coming in right at the peak of noise level, that's horrible. Yeah. So quite often it's like you go from this nice like da 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 to just bah! Yeah. And
but it's the same as like a visual thing. Like if you just cut to like a bright flash, you'd be like, whoa, warning.
Yeah.
Anybody that follows Owner on Instagram knows what people feel about welding flashes.
Yeah. And
do yourself a favor while you're editing. You can put something in front of wherever your heat source is when you're welding. Just block something in between the camera and your torch, and a lot of that flash will go away because the sensor can't see past the object. You'll still see all the lighting in the room and everything, but like put a little water bottle in front of it and like make that go away.
But
later in Brett's Pet Hates.
Oh, it's maybe because I filmed for somebody that has a like, why does this look like this? I almost always block him. You can tell insider info. You can tell when I've filmed something when Jimmy's been welding and he's filmed something. Yeah. Because 99% of the time I block his weld with something.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Should we get into that? We've been talking for 25 minutes about editing, and if this is any gauge for how intensive this can be for all of us that do it, there's a lot of shit going on, and we haven't even started. I put everything in the timeline. So I start with music because it helps me edit. I also use a service called Epidemic. Some people I know use it because I recognize some of the music that gets used in their videos, but Epidemic's really cheap. I used to work for a stock media company where we sold music and graphics and video and stuff like that. And then I found Epidemic and went, wow, their business model is way better. So welcome personal opinion.
So people get what you mean. I'm assuming that Epidemic is a place that you get your music and that from. And is that all that you're saying that offers? Is it a website or something?
Yes. So Epidemic is a sound and music library. They have tons of sound effects and constantly updating music library with tons of different genres and stuff. It may not be like the most search friendly. I've talked about that with a few people. It just seems like it's easy to find what you want unless you're going for something really specific, and then it becomes like, why don't they have more pirate music? Run into that problem a lot of times.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a few like royalty-free ones that I've used for like just putting random sound effects in, and like ones that I've used for editing the podcast and stuff as well. But just as an example, because this is a programmer, a company that I've never actually heard of. Like for someone like you that's got a good number of subscribers and like puts videos out regularly, are you talking like this is costing you what, like a few bucks a month, or is this costing you like $50 a month sort of thing?
Like 2 cups of coffee a month.
Perfect. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's something like 10 or 15 quid.
Where the fuck are you getting your coffee from?
I was trying to underestimate. Easy there, Al.
I love it.
Oh, well, when you go into
Coffee
Starbucks and
store.
order a double mocha fropa chino with the double shot of something, it gets pricey.
It does.
Yeah. All right. into the lion's den. So I've got all of my clips in my timeline, and I shot this one a bit out of order, where I really just needed the time to get the build done.
Yeah.
And here towards the end, funny story, if you look at what I'm wearing, it almost looks like it's as dirty as it was in the intro, even though it's supposed to be the outro, because I shot them both at the same time. Oh yeah, this is me squatting on the on the broom.
So
This is
weird.
silly. Whee!
Just a very quick one for anybody that's listening to the podcast on their normal podcast app. In case you hadn't already realized, this episode is going to be out on YouTube as well. So
Yes.
go check out the Fools with Tools channel. And,
Please feel free to see me squatting on my broom.
Yeah.
It's great. All right. So the first thing that I do that helps me out a lot is I will actually sort through and compartmentalize my timeline. And like Steve said, if you're using maybe a slightly older machine or your files are really big and you can't pump everything into the timeline and you got to go like piece by piece, this could be a little bit different for you. But as far as my workflow goes, I know this is the outro, roughly. I'm not going to get super specific on this, but I will take the outro and put it at the end. This is the intro, and I'm moving it to the beginning. Bop. And now I know that everything in the middle is my build. So I'm able to just initially compartmentalize. I'll spend a little bit extra time going through the intro and outro to make sure that they kind of set up and then finish the story the way that I want them to. They usually take me a little bit longer because there's things like audio involved. There's a crotch shot for everybody. That's cool. And what I'll do from here is I just continue to compartmentalize because it helps me, again, sort through what I've got. It's hard to remember all the clips as you're shooting them, especially if you're doing something like Al was mentioning earlier. If you've got 5 projects going on at the same time and you're having to save files everywhere and maybe it's a couple weeks before you get back to a project, you 9 times out of 10 you forget what you shot. So I will go through and in a non-linear or layerable editing software like Premiere, I have multiple positions that I can put the video and audio levels or audio files into. And just to show everyone what I'm talking about, this is all on channel 1 and channel 2, like layer 1, layer 2. And if I wanted to put, say, a clip in between or underneath, I can stack them like this. And what you'll get is the visual from one, but the audio will still play layered, whatever. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. But this is a visual sorting that I'm doing right here that I'm showing you guys. So because I can move everything to different layers, I know that this first clip, this starts the first section of my build, and I like to compartmentalize my build. So I'm working on the broomstick right now, and I will very quickly scrub through and try and find a point where that section of the build changes. Okay, so the forging is done on this clip because I go inside and I'm working in the barn again. So I'll pull this clip up as a visual marker of saying that's where my build changes. And I go on to the next piece. And wherever that next piece is, say like the brassing, okay, that's another part that I want to point out. Or the putting the hay on was a good shift. And then I have some hero shots at the end. So really what I'm able to look at now is I get to say I have 5 parts of a video. I have an intro, 3 build sections, and then an outro. Therefore, if I'm looking at the music that I've pulled in for whatever vibe I'm trying to create, I'm going to look for, say, 5 pieces of music.
Yeah.
This is why I keep bringing up why music is very important for me, because a 3-minute long piece of music will typically have an intro, a middle, and an end, or like a build and then an out. It has a structure to the piece that's been put together. And so what that does for me is, if I'm going to complete a portion of the build, I'm going to complete that portion of the build within a piece of music, because we are ingrained, we are like naturally used to hearing things in this bite-sized manner, right? Like you get a 3-minute long piece of music, that song started and then it ended. Well, if I can finish a piece of the build during that time, then I'm staying on a regular pace that people are used to. Then I can shift to another song, and it doesn't seem like it's jarring, because like we've told that part of the story. Now we're going on to the next piece, and I can play with the buildup of just having a background track for the intro, just something that needs to play while I'm talking. And then during the build, I can pace out the build to whatever that first piece of music is. Maybe it starts off soft, and then the second section really builds up, and then it starts to come down in the third section, and then I can have another light music bed for the outro. And you can play with that a million times over and build crescendos if you're hitting metal at the end and flux is flying everywhere. Like, you can play super powerful music and build the video up to that.
Yeah.
This helps me structure it so that I know, oh crap, I spent a lot of time forging, because that's 50% of my timeline right now is me forging the handle.
Yeah.
So if I want to even those out, I that means I need to take out some of that stuff in the the forge.
Because I think that's one of the kind of, even if you're not editing to music or anything like that, I think dividing your build up into sections is a really good way of editing, because like you say, you look at each section as like a chapter in a book. So you make each one of those not necessarily self-contained, but you divide them up, and that gives you like, if you know that you're only going to have 20 minutes a day to edit, then it means that, okay, well, today I'm working on chapter 1, tomorrow I'm working on chapter 2, or even if you've got, again, going back to me and my shitty laptop, if you've got a computer that can't handle 6 hours of footage being imported into it at once, you can say, right, well, I'm just going to take the clips of, forging out the handle. I'm just going to load all of them in, and I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to get that down to roughly what I want. And then, because I've done this before, like edited a video in like 3 or 4 different sections, exported all of them, then imported those 3 completed, in inverted commas, completed chapters back into it, gone through it and gone, well, actually, I really like the way that it flows, but I wish this one was a little bit longer, or that one had that extra shot in it. Gone back to the original saved files of those chapters, edited it in there, and then done it. And it's a long-winded, pain in the ass way of doing it. But let's say if you're working with limited tools, it's finding those little kind of tricks and tips that work for you. So I think this sort of stuff is not just applicable to just music. There's a lot of tips and things that you can gain from this, no matter what the situation is.
I think just to jump on what you're saying about just looking at that timeline now, you've got, like you said, 40% of it is the forging bit. And I think this is something that maybe a lot of people don't realize, especially when they're starting out. They maybe put too much of some stuff or not enough of another bit. Yeah. And it's like, yes, it's your video, do whatever you want. If you want it to be a forging video, obviously concentrate on that the most. But I think I was guilty of it as well, early on. You don't really realize, because you were involved in doing the project. You are kind of numb to what, I know I spent that long doing that, so that's why it's that long. But somebody watching it who wasn't there, doesn't know how long it took, might not necessarily want to sit through that. So it's about just being aware of, is 10 minutes of putting wood through a planer really what you want to see? Or do you get the basic gist of it, and actually they might be way more interested in something that, you know, is a technique of yours, or something you know, like Brett showing like the brassing. You know, that's probably something that not a lot of people know about. So, you know, focusing on that for a little bit longer could actually be really interesting and get people's attention.
And the thing is I think it's one of those that, like, the one that's coming to mind is the Badger Claw video. Like, I spent so long forging on that, but I was really conscious of the fact that I didn't want to have 20 minutes of me beating on a single piece of metal. Like, it was like, that would have been boring, but it was finding ways that show the passage of time, that show that, you know, that was an entire day's worth of work.
Montage, baby.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
What montages are for.
Yeah, it's finding a way to show that passage of time without it taking 20 minutes, sort of thing.
Right.
And I think, yeah, like you say, it's finding, it's not getting too caught up and not being all like, oh, but this took me so long, so I want to show people all of this. It's like, yeah, but that watching 20 minutes of you hand planing a bit of wood isn't going to be as interesting as watching a 10-minute video of the whole process, sort of thing.
I was just going to say, just even, I mean, for those not familiar with a timeline like this in Editing Suite, that's, you know, what you see there, those little blue sort of bookends, that's every little clip, right? So you're pretty kind of average clip length, like 4 or 5 seconds long, and they're pretty uniform.
Yeah,
you know, you've got a few that are a little bit long, a few little, but then suddenly
there's the brassing clip.
That's exactly. So even without knowing that, that's something that sticks out for me. Even just looking at that really condensed timeline,
right,
is something that you want to show. You know, that's rare for you to give something screen time for that long.
Yeah. I'm a fan of this whole kind of visualization stuff. I don't know if there's any way within, say, iMovie. I don't know how it works very well because I haven't worked in it in a long time. I know a lot of people work in iMovie because they have Macs and it comes with iMovie. Again, not being super learned in it, I'm pretty sure you can put everything into the timeline.
It's pretty much like what you're looking at there. One of the things I actually prefer about iMovie is that you can kind of book clips up together and lock clips in little groups.
Yeah,
it kind of makes this a little bit easier as well. So that the whole chaptering thing,
right,
is actually a lot more visually makes more sense in iMovie.
Yeah,
but obviously, you know, you're removing features, but principle's the same. Same in Final Cut. Final Cut's like somewhere in between iMovie and Premiere.
Yeah. The best thing, if you're one of those folks that really likes to take out sections and work on those chapters, is a really often used term in video production world is nesting. Or pre-composing. Pre-composing gets used a lot in After Effects and motion graphics, but within Premiere, and you guys can see this on screen, correct?
Yep.
It says nest is a selection that I can make. I just select this whole group and right click, and it'll bring up nest, and I can say intro. And then what that will do is it turns it green in this timeline. And it makes it just one clip, right? One piece of video. But if I double click on it, this actually takes me into a nested comp. It's a video within a video.
But it's not having to do what Steve said before, which is rendering it all out. So it removes that time-consuming part of it.
Yes, and that's, you know, not all programs have that capability, but most of them have a way to pre-compose or nest things and have like a master timeline, and then everything can feed into that. So if I make any edits to this right now, like say I take this clip, shorten it down, you know, delete the airspace, so now I'm probably like 5 or 10 seconds shorter. If I go back to the main clip and zoom in on it in the timeline, you can see this is all dead space now because I deleted that in the pre-composition or the nested comp. So you do have to make some tweaks if you go crazy editing. I have a tendency I don't let this sit here. Like if I'm going to do this chapter thing, I will have a master composition like this, and I'll work on the intro here, and then in Premiere at least, and in other user interfaces for other programs, it'll be in a different situation or in a different position on your screen. But this is just all of my assets. This is the sequence for intro, And whatever edits I make, if I drop that into the timeline, those edits are already pre-made. So that's just like a random little detail. But if you want to edit and you do have Premiere, you could totally break it up into chapters and then drop all of those chapters into a master timeline. It could save you tons and tons of time.
Yeah.
The other good thing about that is being able to do like all of your edits to 15 clips. And like Steve was saying, if you ever have to tweak the audio afterwards, you don't have to say you're leveling the audio and you realize that 2 of the clips are super loud. If they're nested like this, that just has 1 audio channel on it now. So you can control all of the audio in the nested comp, get it all sounding nice. And then if you get into the master and it maybe still seems a little bit loud, you get to lower everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you're just regulating everything within 1 clip. You could do fade ins and fade outs and only have to control 1 clip. So again, it makes less work for you. If you want to break up into chapters, move into this, then you may only have, say I broke this into 5, I would have 5 master clips that I could do finishing on. Things like color correction. If you're shooting in the same light for a long period of time and you want to go as far as color correcting, you could color correct 100 individual clips or pre-compose it like this and then just do it once.
Yeah.
Saves time. It's all jigs and CNC machines, right?
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. The software that I use, I know that I can't actually color correct an entire section. The same with the audio. Like I can only do it for individual clips. So I've got into the habit of like you say, either if it's one long shot that I'm then segmenting up, doing that color correction beforehand, or if it's lots of little shots that are all shot in the same light, then I'll create a preset color correction like profile thing and just go through and do that before I do any more editing on it. Just make sure that all that color correction is done then, because where I do most of my videos, it's a great place, but depending on time of day, I get shafts of sunlight that come in through 2 skylights, and it fucks with everything, and it's horrible. But
yeah, that's what I like, that Al has the Hack Shack, because even though it's a windowless box, that super works to your advantage. If you're somebody that wants to maintain some consistency, like Al, I want your perspective on this, but half of editing for me is continuity. And so not having to color correct a shit ton because I'm controlling the light while I'm shooting, and so that it all visually looks the same and it's not jarring. Filming in your Hack Shack when we did the video with Sophie last year was awesome, because everything looks the same the entire time until the sun started going down, and then you turn the lights on.
Yeah. So yeah, like in that respect, winter's better because the doors are shut, so nothing changes. And I'm so glad that I didn't put fucking windows in, because it would just be a pain in the ass, especially because like I'm in the north of England, so you get super like low sun in the evening, right? So it would be a nightmare. I mean, I'm listening to this conversation as like kind of like going up above my body and looking down and thinking, what are they talking? Why are they talking about color correction? Like as if we're making a movie or like a TV show or something. And there's some people going like, this is not relevant, but just give it a try. Like we don't necessarily mean like, we're not making fucking children of men. It's not about like grading the shit out of it for an Oscar, but it is about that continuity thing and it not being jarring. It's no different than having like a quiet scene followed by a super loud scene. It's just going to annoy people.
Exactly.
And people say things like, "Oh, I've got to keep turning my volume up and down," and it's a real ball ache, and it can really put people off watching your shit. So something as simple as a really dark scene followed by a really bright scene, just spend a couple of seconds, see if you can like normalize them.
Yeah,
it isn't some overkill thing. It's just a really simple little tweak.
And that's the thing is like.
Sorry, Steve, did you want to say something?
Fuck you.
Well, I was going to say.
Most of the time I'm doing color correction is just for that exact reason, because it's because it's going from super dark to super light, or you know, I've shot something, but there's a massive amount of glare on it, and it's all like washed out. So it's just putting a little bit of color back in, so you can actually see what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, it's not quite so much creating, you know, like with Brett's, where there's almost like a not a filter, but it's almost like there's a filter going over the whole thing, and it all follows the same kind of color profile. With mine, it's more just very basic bodging it together, whereas with Brett's, it's a little bit more, or tends to be a little bit more cinematic in the way that it's done.
And again, that comes down to personal preference. Al, I appreciate you interjecting that, because I'm kind of catching myself going into like deep seated. This isn't the like, welcome, we're going to teach you how to edit a movie. So much of this is making your life easier. We all walk into the edit of this, and especially if you're just starting, or like, how do I produce my first video? Do I have to get Premiere? No. Do you have to buy a Mac and have iMovie? No. There's tons of people that do it with other software, or, you know, old computers and things.
Tim does his on his phone.
Chris Cash got 1 million views, shot it on his phone, edited it, posted it, whatever. Doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's an absolute like lottery ticket of a situation for him. But I have a lot of years having worked in production, and I've learned from experience that everybody's got their opinion about what tool or what camera or what programming you can use. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Things like color correction, to use your example, Al, will help.
Yeah.
Most of you have Instagram or a social media app that you use. I can almost guarantee that at some point you've like used a filter or boosted the contrast on a shot. It doesn't take very long once you learn that it's 2 clicks of the button. It's the same thing in whatever editing program you do. I know for a fact that iMovie has pre-filters that will like warm up a scene or cool down a scene or boost the contrast, and you just click. It's like a copy paste situation. So yeah, I don't mean to sound like I'm going too over the top and giving like a Premiere tutorial walkthrough. That's for a different time, because it's a long conversation. But the basics of what I'm trying to get across is pre-production is just important as post-production for me. Whatever project you want to work on, great. Take 10 or 15 minutes, maybe as you're getting set up, write down like what do you think the important part of this build is to show. If you just want full coverage, which there's no problem with, like set up cameras, full coverage. I just want to be able to switch some angles every now and then, but I want just a big wide shot, maybe a couple of details, and then out. I want to show somebody how I build a chair.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Just to galvanize that point about pre-production and, you know, keeping it tight in the camera and letting, you know, there's so many times where I've actually just gone out and reshot stuff because it's quicker and easier than fucking around and trying to do it in the edit.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be different for you, Brett, because you might be at home or you might not be at the shop, but I literally just close the MacBook, run to the hack shack, shoot a scene, and come back, because that 10, 15 seconds is quicker than 2 or 3 minutes fucking around trying to edit it.
Yeah.
And you can just go, right, that's the exact shot I want, that's the exact length I want. I'm not trying to cut bits out, or, you know, even like there's times where I've like ended up speeding things up or like mirroring things back so it kind of bounces. And you don't notice it, but you just needed that extra second, otherwise it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to kind of like either time stretch it or like play it back on itself, and it's like it gets a bit weird.
Yeah.
It just proves the point that it's easier to do it when you're shooting it, which sounds ridiculous because there's a camera involved, you've got to be doing the making, you've got to be on set. But seriously, it is quicker.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why, like, the first couple of videos that I did, I think it was actually Brett that even suggested it. I wrote out a very, very basic shot list. It's like, right, what things do I actually need to capture? and it made it so much easier, because it was like, right, okay, I've got that shot. That means I don't actually need to video for another 20 minutes because I'm just doing the same thing over and over again now. And yeah, did that. And like now when I am filming, which isn't very often, but when I do, it's, you know, that's kind of almost instinctual. It's like, right, okay, what do I need? Right. Yeah, I got this. And like Al says, if you do miss something occasionally, you have to go back and and reshoot it. But I think one of the other things is like people get so caught up in having the perfect video for their first video, and like trying to put everything in, trying to have, you know, every special shot ever, every little bit, you know, and have like, because I mean, all of us have put in jokes and things like that into our videos, and like the Vice video that I did, there's only like 30 people on the planet that are going to get half of the jokes that are in it. And the fact that, you know, to understand it, you've got to have seen I can't remember who's the first Vice video restoration video to start with it, but like, yeah, you've got to have seen like 3 different videos before mine makes sense. And that was great fun. But if you're going for a wide appeal, that's maybe not the way to go. If you're just doing it for a bit of fun, then do it for a bit of fun. Like, I think understanding why you're doing something is important, but I think just getting over the hump of getting that first video out is more important, because if you put a video out and it gets no views, and you do 3 more and you go, actually that first one was really shit, you can delete it. It's fine. Like,
you'll find your way. So like,
yeah.
You might put all your fucking effort into it, but then actually, you know what really resonates with people, or what you actually really enjoy doing, is just doing voiceovers and just filming yourself, you know. Or the opposite, it might be that you really enjoy just showing your hands, so you didn't need to bother with all that stuff. And you know, it's just finding your way, what goes down, or what feels natural. If you try to force something every time you make a video and the edit feels like, oh, this doesn't even feel like me, I think you'll find that you start editing because it's what you like. And if you know, that's ultimately what your content will be, is things that you like. And if you're doing something that isn't really your thing, and you try to either appeal to a market or copy another style, it's like you're not doing the right thing.
And that's the thing, is at the end of the day, like, I think I speak for all 3 of us when we say we do this for enjoyment. This is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to feel like an absolute slog to get through every single edit. And like, one of the things that I've found since starting doing any kind of videos is that I much prefer filming other people. I don't like being in front of the camera myself. I certainly don't like being in front of the camera talking. And you know, I'm doing a couple of videos where I'm forcing myself to do that, and that's more of a kind of a personal challenge and a personal growth thing. And like, I honestly don't care if those videos get 0 views, but the videos that I really enjoy making, and the videos that I think are worth watching of mine, tend to be ones where I'm filming someone else do something, because I feel a lot freer, and I feel, especially when I'm editing, you know, I'm not going, oh fuck, I look like a dick in that shot, or I sound really stupid, or whatever. I'm just going, this shot works, this shot doesn't, and I'm far more objective about it. And so yeah, my point is basically just like Al said, you find what works for you, what you feel comfortable, what you enjoy doing, and you go with that, rather than trying to force something that you think, oh, well, I need to do this because that's going to get me clicks or likes, or
not even that. I don't even necessarily think there's always a cynical edge to it. It might just be that some people might think that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
You know, I have to have an intro, I have to have music in it. Like, you don't at all. Like, I use music purely for storytelling purposes. So if I'm arriving in a car, it's the radio is on in the car, or you know, or I'm building a radio in the hack shack, so I obviously need to have some sort of music. Like, it's used as part of the narrative. It's not necessarily a tool that I need in my videos. Sometimes it's nice, you know, but other times that's not my style. So you don't have to necessarily do everything bells and whistles. I remember before I'm still shooting on my 15-year-old SLR. That you know, is not fit for purpose, but it does what I need it to do. Like, I remember before even building the hack shack, I was like, do I need a camera with like interchangeable lenses, and do I need this, and do I need that, and what kind of lighting rig do I need? And it's like, no, it's not relevant to what I'm doing. You know, I'm not making a Backstreet Boys video. I'm not in a studio. I don't need those little rings in my fucking irises. It's just me and my camera filming what I'm doing, usually with the same focal length and a few occasional close-ups.
Yeah,
and that's all I need. You know, same with Brett. I'll change the camera angle to waste time because I've got nothing better to do than walk around moving fucking cameras and then redoing the scene. Because it's visual interest and it's fun and you might want to see things from different angles, but I don't need anything else than that. I don't need any, I've realized through doing it that I don't actually need it. Whereas at the start I was like, oh, I need everything. I need a Rode mic. I need all this. It's like, actually, it turns out I don't.
Yeah, I feel like we've touched on that
People
before.
People love listening to me breathe down the fucking camera.
I fucking love it. Leave it alone. That's one other thing. If you are filming and getting into production, you got to imagine that the pre-production stuff, all these tools and all the stuff that we, have to try and spend money on materials and tools to build the thing. And then on top of that, realizing that you need, Adobe's not free. The Adobe stuff's not free. The music service that I talked about earlier is not free. There are ways to do this for a hell of a lot cheaper, just like there are cheaper tools to use in the workshop. It's all an investment in what you want, but you are in no way required to buy the really expensive angle grinder. There are clearly tons of us that use the beat up old ones. Same thing goes with the editing programs. People that are able to do more with less. I'm impressed by the person that can have the cheapest camera, the free editing software, the free music, and still make it feel like it was an insanely high budget, well produced maker video. And you're like, how the fuck did you do that? Well, it's because they were engaging. Whatever it was, the interest of the thing that they were doing, it held my interest so well that I didn't care that it was a little overexposed or that it wasn't as sharp, as a 4K $10,000 lens on the front of a $50,000 camera.
I mean,
all of this editing stuff feeds off of the pre-production. Like, you can't do this post-production if you're not even thinking about what happens before.
But that's the thing is, you saying that about the whole 4K thing. That's one of my pet peeves, is the fact that the vast majority of people that watch stuff on YouTube are either watching it on their phones while they're in the bathroom, or they've stuck it on their TV and they're doing something else, or they're watching it on their laptop. They're not watching it like it's a cinematic experience. They're not expecting to have the best production quality and absolutely crystal clear the entire time. Don't get me wrong, if that's the way that you want to go and do that, that's great. But don't worry if you're only shooting in 720p. That's perfectly fine. I mean,
you're also getting in your own way, because that's going to be like, well, I can't make a video until I have $10,000 lighting. And you're like, okay,
exactly.
And I've just quartered the speed of my editing computer because I've now got 4 times the resolution of the footage.
Exactly. I'm trying to open Adobe After Effects right now to show you guys something, and my computer's just not having it.
I mean, that's the thing. Is, don't get me wrong, there are huge advantages if you can afford to have everything that'll do that. Then yes, there's obvious advantages to it. But I mean, Tim from work edited a video on his phone, edit it on his phone, and it was actually really good and really enjoyable because it's fun watching Tim be Tim.
But he is a mess, and his workshop's a mess. And the stuff he builds is rustic and tasty. So it shouldn't be a clean cut, sterile fucking laser show, because it would completely jar with his style.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I think it's about finding something that fits and not getting so. I mean, again, it goes back to what you said earlier on, Al, not getting hung up on all the things that you look and you think, oh, I must do this and I must do that, because you don't worry about what you must. It's exactly the same as fucking making something. If you don't have a table saw, use a hand saw. it's whatever it takes to get it done. You don't need to have all the bells and whistles. You don't need to have, like Brett said, you don't need to have a fucking CNC to do it. You can do it by hand. You can do it with what you've got, and it still be good and still be enjoyable. Like
I don't think it's real editing unless you're actually cutting the film by hand.
You have to have the
sellotaping it together.
Sellotape, yeah. And then you have to hand crank it and record the hand crank on the laser disc
and develop the film yourself.
There you go. Yeah, I know we've kind of devolved into just a generic conversation about things because I think all three of us realized we were like, this is fucked. I don't want to just show off my editing software, but the most important things as far as the advice goes and as far as what I was showing you guys earlier, I've since just kind of closed the program. I'll show another little thing just to show off some silliness that goes into, like, when you get really comfortable and ridiculous with the tool. I'll show you guys the After Effects animation editing. I'll bring it up on screen so that people that are listening, hopefully we can get a gauge from Al and Steve's reaction of what it looks like, because it's nightmarish. I think for me, it's like pre-production being important. Try shooting tight, keeping your head on what you've shot, what's important. You know, making your work easier for you in post-production. And as far as the music thing goes, I know I'm harking on a lot, but even if you don't want to use music in your videos, a lot of times, like Steve, I bet you have music playing in a set of headphones or in the background, or maybe there's some white noise going on in the background, like something that kind of helps you with whatever the vibe is. I say vibe for lack of a better term, but for me, the music thing helps a lot just because there's a tone. There's a tone to either how I shoot or what project I'm working on. Yeah, if it's something piratey, I'll try and have some, like piratey music moving along. When I was editing the anchor that I made with Chris, I initially had kind of like rocky music because Chris listens to rock music. And I was like, yeah, all right, we'll have this vibe and it'll be a little bit more powerful. And then I got so frustrated because I hated it. I was like, this isn't what it is. I hate this. And I took a huge step back and then went the opposite direction. I was like, I'm going to play something slow. And like it's from the medieval ages underneath this, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the exact opposite of my original approach. Made a huge difference. And made the edit feel better to me. Yeah. So you have full control over whatever you're trying to tell the people. If what you're trying to purvey, is that the right word? Convey, yeah. Convey. Whatever you're trying to convey, whether it is specifically the build, or if you're like some of us that do the storyline driven stuff, or like a full fly video, there's clearly a bunch of production time put into like the dumb costumes and the music and the, calling each other days before to get footage of Steve with a tape mustache on and Al dressed like Jane. It's supposed to be fucking fun to do these things. So if the edit is a huge drag on you, see what you can change about the edit. What are you doing to get in your own way about getting those things produced and getting them out there for people to see?
I can testify to that because as it goes on, I'm actually enjoying the process a lot more. Yeah. At the start, it was a ball ache and it was time consuming and it was frustrating. But now, as I start to learn all these things that actually help me along the way, and how to sort of line things up and be ruthless, it's actually becoming a really fun process. Yeah. And I know a lot of people bitch and moan about editing because it takes so much time. Everything takes time. And I just think that this is part of it. Like I'm not making projects, I'm making videos. Yeah. That's the point. I'm not making dresses. the thing that I'm producing is the video for people to watch. So like it's more important almost than the actual thing. The thing is probably getting thrown away, burnt, or eaten at the end of it. So
I'm gonna put this up on the screen for you guys to see, and I know I've talked about this before. So folks that are listening, I apologize, but this goes along exactly with what you were saying, Al. Like the Maker Adventure thing was an idea I came up with a while ago because I'm a video game nerd and I always wanted to be a video game character. So the amount of work that I accept, like it is not extra work, it's part of the project, right? But it is stupid sometimes to open these programs and realize what I've gotten myself into with these, where I now have to have a separate After Effects file for every Maker Adventure video because the actual files themselves are too heavy for my computer to run, let alone like render them out. So I have to do a lot of what Steve was talking about earlier with the nesting and everything. But for anybody that's able to see this, I'll show you based on the nesting stuff that we were talking about earlier, that I was talking you through earlier. This intro from the coin video, which is the last Maker Adventure video, this is what you get to see when you render it out, is this one timeline. I can kind of scrub through it, but it's absolutely chewing my computer apart, and it's in 1/3 resolution. If you want to look into like what goes into this and why I am learning to enjoy the process, like Al was saying, I can double click on this and go into the nest that created that file. And that is these 30 layers. Now, each one of these layers that is beige is another pre-comp. And then all of those layers that are beige are other pre-comps. And so I think in this animation for Jess that I had to make with the milk run and everything, there's 300 separate assets that all have to get animated and layered and stuff like that, only to get output to Premiere, then put music on top of and sound effects, and then key out the timing and everything like that. And I do it absolutely willingly because this is meant to be fun for us. This is like, I choose to do these silly videos with animations and things in them and spend way more time than a couple people that I could list as examples that don't spend that much time on their production. It doesn't matter. Like, they're still producing stuff. They're making cool shit. I'm trying to do the same. It's an opinion and a different perspective on things. I have a desire to take people along with this little adventure. I'm willing to put in the extra tools and the extra time because to me it's completely worth it, and it's enjoyable to get a smile on somebody's face when I make a squirrel crawl across the screen.
And I think that's the thing, though, is like you say, it's you have the ability through your own skills to be able to do that. I mean, yes, don't get me wrong, like you could probably do with a nice brand new fucking Mac to run it all on. But yeah, you're willing to put up with that pain because you enjoy it, and you know you might not necessarily enjoy that specific part of the process, but the end result is worth it to you. And I think that's the same with, like, to bring this background to making it. It's the same with any kind of making. Like, you go as far as you want to go with it. You know, if you want to do like really detailed fine woodworking, then you know that okay, if I'm doing this with all hand tools, then it's going to take a lot longer. And it's the same with you doing the Maker Adventure. If you're going to do that all in After Effects, it's going to take a lot longer, but for you it's worth it. But that doesn't mean that you need to have these special tools to put things in. Like you can either just get some friends to like you say, to film some bits where you're not putting on special After Effects and things like that. It is literally just a bit of masking tape colored in with a Sharpie that becomes a mustache, and you can put those silly things in, and you make a point of showing that they are just silly, and you're not trying to pretend like you've got the best production values in the world. Like it's just about being honest with what you make, whether that's a piece of furniture or whether that's a video. It's showing what you can do and what you want to do, and as long as the end result is something that you're happy with and you're proud of, it doesn't matter. But yeah, did you just quickly want to do that audio bit?
Yeah, sure. So since we've talked about audio quite a bit, I'll give people an example. If you can see here, this is the final edit that I did for the broom video, And this looks pretty crazy from a wide view, but obviously we do the wide view to begin with. And I'll play back. Hopefully you guys can hear the audio, but I'll try and play back some of the parts that have cuts to the beat, just to give you a sense of what we're talking about when editing to the music. But if we look, Al, I think you had brought it up. If we look at it from kind of far away, even though there's all these insane video clips going and it seems all chopped through, you can see the audio waveform here in green. And
so the green's the music and the blue is like the audio of the clips, right?
Yeah. And you can see like in Premiere, and I'm not 100% sure it works the same in iMovie. I feel like last time I looked at iMovie, you can see the audio waveform, but there's only like a volume control and nothing else. You can't do, if you look right here where my cursor is, there's actually a ramp down in the music, so it gets softer. I'm able to control the volume in that capacity. I don't think some programs can do that. But yeah, you can see this is a build. This is a piece of music that obviously builds. It's quieter here, and then it gets really intense towards the end. If I remember correctly, that is one of the parts of forging. Ooh, that's the brassing part. Forging must be this because it's all loud all the time. And I think it was a bit more intense. So here, I'll try and play it back. We'll see if my computer doesn't explode. So this is actually, I forgot that I chose this music piece. There's a harmony. No, there's a melody going on. All of the cuts are done on this kind of a bell sounding repetition that it's on like a 4/4 count. It just kind of repeats over and over again. And you may not pick up, the average viewer may not pick up on it, but every shot changes on the measure of those sounds.
Yeah.
So even though it's very hidden in the background, and that little high end part is kind of hidden with the piano and kind of the droning sounds, to me, I was editing to that, and what it did was actually add a pretty decent flow. When I watched it back, I was like, oh, that's very subtle.
Yeah. For those of you that can see the screen and you can see the peaks and troughs in the audio, like just to explain to those that can't, like for me, I find because as we just saw with Brett's like computer not exactly wanting to play ball for a second, like if you're trying to do really really nice, clean, tight edits like that, then sometimes hitting play, pause isn't the best way to do it. And I quite often, rather than seeing where the music comes in, because mine will like the video will start playing and 10 minutes later the audio will suddenly kick in, or the audio will play but all of a sudden it just jumps at 30 seconds ahead, sort of thing. Like I get a lot of problems with that. So I use the waveform as a way of editing. So I just click straight on, like you say, if you're doing for the melody, I recognize where that melody is or where it is in the melody by where it is in the waveform, and using that as an edit point rather than trying to do it by listening to it. So going back to doing like the whole visual thing, and finding those little tricks like that where you can look at it and go, right, that's it, that's what I need to, or that's where I need to cut it, rather than listening to it and going, oh, that was it. And then you've got that you've got the delay of your computer, B, you've got the reaction delay, then you click it, then if your laptop's anything like mine, it's 3 seconds later and it actually does the thing that you just tried to do. And right. And then you have to go back and you have to keep repeating that until you click it in the right place. Or you just go, right, okay, I'm going to look at the timeline, I'm going to edit it up there, I'm going to go, because most, I actually just went to click on it on the screen and realized that this is a not my program, but you can jump ahead by a single frame at a time. So use that, like get to roughly where you want to be with the waveform, and then go frame by frame until you're in the exact right spot, and like little things like that. And I think that's kind of, they're really important. But again, it comes back to what I was saying at the beginning. Like you learn this stuff as you do it. Like nobody that first did nobody's first cut of a bit of wood was perfectly straight. Like it's about whatever program you use, learning how to use it, learning what works for you, and kind of going on from there.
It's just another tool.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is I think it's about learning how to use it, what works for you, what doesn't, learning those little tricks and tips and things like that. And the thing is there's so many people out there that do this as well. Like it is just another form of making. So if you've got questions, there's fucking loads of Facebook groups out there for all of the different podcasts. So just go into one of them and just say, guys, I'm doing this, I'm using this program. Any tips for how I can make it do this instead? Or, you know, I'm struggling getting this thing to work. Anybody come across this problem before?
I think
like
even just watching people's videos and
Yeah.
not watch them first time round to enjoy it, but then maybe watch it again and just go, oh, that's how, you know, like watch someone like Seb's videos.
Oh my
Because
god,
he uses music instead of tool sounds,
and it's so wonderful.
so he's not using music to edit to or for timing. He's just using it as like a hilarious. Sometimes it's sound effects, like Moonraker laser for his nail gun, things like that. But he's using music as almost like a pun.
Yeah,
you know, for comedy effects. So there isn't one formulaic way of doing this. And I think if you just watch a few different styles, you go, oh yeah, that's what Frank Howarth does. That's what Jimmy does. That's what Brett does.
Yeah.
And just make a few notes. There's no harm in going like, oh, actually, I really like the way they do that, but I'd rather not have it sped up. I'd rather do it, real time. Make your own little recipe.
Yeah, because
you're not going to come up with any new groundbreaking movie making techniques, and there's no real reason to. But slow-mo looks good when you're making crazy changes with the power hammer, I guess.
Yeah.
But the trends, the visual trends, do them. There is a reason they work. There's a reason people like them. Or go the complete opposite direction because it's your video and you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like Al
you can do whatever you want. Just fucking turn autofocus off.
But like Al said, like there's so many different.
I want 5 minutes of
things.
Al rant production.
But yeah, there's loads of different things out there that people do, and there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from that and using those little things. And like Al said, you take those little things and you make your own recipe. If you wholesale, like completely copy shot for shot someone's video, then that's probably frowned upon. But if you're just going, oh, I really like the way that Brett cut that, or I really like the way that that Jimmy sped that bit up, or whatever, like you oh, all right. But
oh yeah, shit, this is a video, isn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you realize everyone can see you.
I'm editing this.
But whatever those things are, you take those little bits and you make your own recipe. That's the thing, is as long as the end result is something that's yours, then it doesn't matter if you've got a few little bits that you've taken inspiration from other people. I think that's kind of it's kind of the way that everybody does it. Yes, that I was going to get around to that. Yeah, that way around. But yeah, just basically get out there, make your own stuff. Oh, for fuck's sakes, it's really distracting.
No, but I've
sorry.
It's mirrored. It's not an actual footage. I don't know. Am I mirrored to you?
At the moment, you're pointing to my mouse cursor.
Yeah, but that reads the correct way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but to me, it's mirrored. It's backwards.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
Yeah. And after that little discussion, I think we should probably move into spiffing. People that we
think that are spiffing.
Spot, which means it's me first. And I am going to go with, because we were talking about all the editing and everything else, and I'm obviously kind of like the one representing the more basic edits, I guess.
Steve's basic.
And kind of like, and kind of like not having perhaps the all of the bells and whistles to be able to make amazing videos. I'm going to go with Pat Lapp, because what he does with his videos is it's all simple. It's all done like in very simple ways, but it's always really fun. It's always really entertaining. And there's like lots of visual comedy that keeps things interesting, but it's not necessarily like following the formula, as you will, of like this many seconds on this shot and this many seconds on this shot. It's just Pat being Pat, and it's fucking hilarious. So Pat Lapp, who is the woodpecker Le Picbois?
Le Picbois.
Le Picbois.
That one. Go check out his stuff. It's good. B for Brett.
Yeah, I'm going to spiff on a team of folks that I actually used to work with. They were kind of a partner of ours that I developed the relationship over some time. I've talked about it before in previous episodes, but the company's name is Red Giant. They do post-production software and stuff that I've used in the past when I was actually not having to pay for thousands of dollars of post-production software. But they started making a lot more budget level post-production stuff, and it's not just visual effects. They do everything from like some simple motion tracking or color correction presets that'll work in a handful of different programs. And they're a great team of guys, but they have a YouTube channel that's Red Giant Films, I believe, or watch Red Giant Films. I will send Steve the link, so it will be in the shows.
Yep.
But if you just search Red Giant, you should be able to find them. They do a lot of tutorials, so if it was ever something you were interested in getting into visual effects and whatnot, like some of the earliest stuff is what a lot of people that went through motion graphics classes were doing, which is like lightsabers. How do I make a lightsaber? Which is, look into it. There's a couple companies that have figured out some slightly better ways to do it, but really it's like frame by frame. It's called rotoscoping. It's the worst thing on the planet. You just have to like, frame by frame paint this thing on the screen. It sucks.
Yeah.
But Aharon, he's got a really interesting pronunciation of his first name. Aaron Rabinowitz. Yeah. Aaron Rabinowitz is my buddy over there, and he's still doing tutorials along with a couple of the other guys. And they do a lot of like how this style is achieved, or how you could do this simple visual effect, or how to work with color correction better. And they always make it start. They'll start their tutorials from like the basic up. So it starts with really simple, and by the end of it, if you've got chops in it, they'll let you follow along, and you can push it further. So I like them a lot. They've taught me a lot. I still use some of their software. I miss the expensive, really cool software that I used to use, but I still continue to use some of their stuff because it's a huge time saver. And they basically, as far as digital work and editing goes, they make tools just like DeWalt and all the other brands make tools for the shop. They make tools for the post-production stuff. I like them a lot. Good team doing good stuff, putting free tutorial stuff out there. Good people.
Awesome. And actually on that point, that's like just a quick tip. If you can learn a little bit of the terminology when it comes to editing and things like that, it makes searching for basic tutorials so much easier. And there's so many on YouTube, and for every kind of software program that you can think of, someone's done a tutorial for it. And the amount of times that I've been trying to figure something out for hours at the laptop, and then just gone, fuck it, quick Google, and all of a sudden there's a video telling me exactly how to do it. So
Right.
always try and just have a look and see if there's anything on YouTube as well, because normally it helps.
That being said, it sounds like Steve's learned a lot. So if you have any questions on post-production or animation, you be sure and message Steve.
No.
He'll take care of you.
No.
Steve.
Unless you're using Filmora and you want to do some really basic stuff, I'm probably not the person to ask.
Perfect. All right.
Al.
Hi.
Spiffy.
Oh yeah.
There we go. Back in the room.
We've talked about these guys in the past, but it was more in reference to what they're actually producing. But the It's Alive show over on Bon Appetit, that show would not be anything without the edit. And it's nothing fancy. It's one camera angle, couple of close-ups, handheld. There's nothing. There's no effects added. Just a little bit of animation over the top. But it's just all about the cut and the hilarity of when it cuts, when it goes back, showing the behind the scenes stuff. Like the bloopers. It's just really funny, and it's just all about timing. There's no fancy bits really. There's just a little bit of like funny sound effects and stuff. But even with all that stripped out, the edit is what makes that show funny, because you can tell there's chemistry with the camera guy and Brad. So Vinny, I think he's called, the guy doing the filming. I think he does the editing as well. But it really brings that show to life. And even when it's the other shows on the Bon Appetit channel, the editing still kind of keeps this consistent tone of sort of comedy throughout it. So even when the content isn't funny, you still get this kind of enjoyment level going through it. So Bon Appetit, but specifically the It's Alive show.
Nice. Cool.
It is good.
Yeah. Is there any other business from you? Because Brett's back. It's okay. Any other
Don't
business?
talk about it. That's behind the scenes magic.
It's
they'll see it.
Doing video.
Oh, they'll see it.
Yeah. Any other business from either of you?
I don't believe so.
I think the zombie challenge is back on this
Ooh.
year. There's some Rory rumblings. Bear in mind it's end of September. People might have to get a fucking shift on. But watch this space. There might be an announcement bombshell dropped very soon.
Awesome. That's what I like to hear. I think that's kind of it. I think one last little tip from me is, and that's something that I learned from these two, is there are a lot of cinematography style YouTube channels out there. They're really interesting, and they can make you think of some things that you perhaps wouldn't have thought of on your own, and just kind of give you a better understanding of how and why things are shot in a certain way, and why editing in that certain way and cutting it at that certain point is good, bad, or whatever. So yeah, if you do want to do a deep dive into that, there's some really entertaining ones out there, and go check them out. Right. So that is it. You can find us all in all of the usual social media places. You can find me at Moonshine Metalworks. You can find Brett at Skull and Spade 13, and you can find Al at Al's Hack Shack. Yes. I didn't forget to do it this week. I feel good about that. And if you want to find us as a group, you can find us at fwtpodcast.com.
Hold on. What happened? Why didn't we have an Al's Hack Shack off?
Steve talked over it.
I talked over it.
Jesus.
What?
I'm leaving.
At fwtpodcast.com, at fwtpodcast on Instagram. And there's the Facebook group. It's really good fun. There's lovely people in there. It's good. So, I don't know where Brett's gone, but me and Al will see you next week because we love you.